Hello everyone and welcome to your Google Slides presentation for 2.1. Woo woo! We're working on functions and relations as well as domain and range. So these box, you can just click right into them and you can type your name in, which is awesome. So you feel free to use that feature. This is your Google Slides. So only you and me are seeing those notes, nobody else. So once you're all set here, push ahead to slide 2. So this says decide where the graph represents y as a function of x, or whether it does, give the domain and range. So remember that domain is our x values. So here's our x values. That's our x axis. So we want to go smallest to biggest. So this is furthest to the left. So that's going to be our smallest x value, which is at -3. This next x value here is at -1. Then we have an x value of +1. And these both have an x value of +3. So first of all, we can write what our domain is, which is -3, -1, 1, and 3. Now we don't have to write 3 twice. We know that it does repeat here, which means because we have a repeated x value, this is not a function. And our range is our y values. So I'm just going to erase this, and now we're going to look at these points in regards to their y coordinate. So the lowest point is down here at -2. Here's our next point, which has a y value of -1. This next point has a y value of 1. Both of these points have a y value of 3. And then finally, our highest point up has a y value of 4. So our range, or our y values, is -2, -1, 1, 3, and 4. Beautiful. So go ahead and plug that in. And when you're feeling ready, you can push ahead to slide 3. Feel free, if you need to pause, stop the video whenever. That's always okay. Okay. We're wondering if this is a function. So first of all, if we were to make that, wow, that's a bad vertical line. I wish, does this have a vertical line? Aha, it does. Okay. So if we were to make this vertical line, wherever we make that vertical line, it will only hit the graph at one point. So we're good. That is a function. Okay. Clear. So yes. Our domain is our x values. So this arrow keeps going more and more towards -infinity. And this arrow is going to continue to go towards +infinity. So our domain goes from -infinity to infinity. All of the x values, you can plug any x value in and you will be able to get an output. But our outputs, our y values, they do go down, right? These are going down, 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 all the way towards -infinity. But the highest y value that we have is 2. So we're going from -infinity to a +2. And it can be equal to 2, so I do a bracket there, versus the other one has that open parentheses. Okay. And again, we can write these as intervals if we wanted, like this, if you like seeing that x goes from -infinity to infinity, or that the y values go from -infinity to +2. So that's how we can write it as an inequality. Okay. Questions? Okay. Alrighty, let's look at the next slide. This is asking if it is a function. So again, if we think about our vertical lines, it will only hit the graph at one point. So we're good there. That's absolutely fine. We love that. It doesn't let me erase the vertical lines. That's the only thing about that. Or, I don't know what that button does. Okay. So yes, this is definitely a function. The domain, now when we're thinking about the domain, you can think about, we're looking at the x values, right? We're reading the graph from left to right, and we're trying to figure out what are all the x values that are in this span of space, right? And it goes from -4 to 4. -4 is our smallest x value, all the way over to +4. Oops. We can write it as an inequality, or we can write it using brackets. I'm doing both. You can do whatever is easiest and best to you. And then when we're looking at the range, we're looking at that vertical distance. So our lowest point to our highest point, right? We are going from a lowest point of -1 up to our highest point of 1. Beautiful. And when you're all set, push ahead to the next one. This is asking if this is a function, and then for the domain and range. So of course for our domain and range, we just list those input or x values, which is 3, 5, and 7. For the range, we're listing the output or y values, which is 2, 4, and 6. And is this a function? Well, 3 goes to 2 and only 2. 5 maps to 4 and only 4. And 7 maps to 4 and only 4. So we're good. This is definitely a function. There's no repeated x value. Nice job, y'all. Slide 6, we want to know if this is a function. And yeah, if we do that vertical line test, it's only going to hit the graph at one point each time. So that's great. It passes our vertical line test, aka yes, this is a function. Our domain is looking at our x values, right? And our x values go from -3 to 1. Here's our x values, right? -3 is our smallest x value. We're just looking at this length of our x values, which goes from -3 to +1. So we have -3. It's an open circle, so it's less than x, which is less than or equal to 1. Or we can do a -3 with 1, like that. And our range is like, okay, well, if that's essentially like the width, or that's the length, our range is looking up and down at our y values, which goes all the way down to -4 and then all the way up to 0. -4 has a closed circle, and 0 is filled in as well. So we have -4, 0. Nice job, y'all. Push ahead when you're ready. Looking at number 7, slide 7. Is this a function? Well, if we draw a line, it'll only hit the graph at one point. We don't have repeated x values, so yes, this is a function. And then when we're looking at our domain, we're looking at our x values. And again, we have these arrows. When we have these arrows are going to keep getting wider and wider apart, expanding across that entire x-axis. So it's going to go all the way over to negative infinity and positive infinity. Those arrows, like I said, are just going to keep opening, opening, opening. Okay? Our range, the lowest value is down here at -6. And then it keeps going up with those arrows towards infinity. So we have -6 to infinity. You can copy and paste that symbol from Google, the infinity symbol, or you can just write INF for infinity if that's easier. That's totally fine. Slide 8, when you're ready. We have this function that increase and then it goes flat and then it decreases. If we draw a line, it will only hit the graph at one spot. There's no repeated x values, so this is a function. The domain, again, we notice these arrows. These two arrows are going to keep going down, spreading further and further apart as the x values increase and decrease, going all the way over to negative infinity and positive infinity. The range, those arrows are going down, so the range is definitely going all the way down to negative infinity. And then that range stops up top here at its highest value of 4. So it goes from negative infinity to 4. Beautiful. Slide 9, which is not a correct way to represent a function. I want you to try this one on your own. Okay, so what you're looking for is repeated x values. When we have repeated x values, then it is not a function. So you're just going to drag this x and find which of these has a repeated x value, and that one is not a function. Oh wait, sorry, I read that wrong. My bad. It gives us these 4 points, and you're looking to say which is not a correct way to represent the function. So which of these is not showing us -3, 2, 1, 8, -1, 5, and 3, 11. Okay. On the next one, you're sorting these into 2 groups, either function or not a function. And this I want you to try on your own as well. You're going to click and drag these, okay? There are 5 graphs and 2 tables. So there's 7 things that you're sorting all together. And think of that vertical line test or any repeated x values. That's what you want to be putting in for not a function. If you do have those repeated x values, and if it passes the vertical line test, you can put it into your function category. Okay. And on slide 11 here, this is just a little box that you can use to fill out some definitions, characteristics, or facts, examples or non-examples of what a function is. So, you know, some things we can think of is you know, non-examples are going to be, actually, hold on, so non-examples might be something like repeated x values, or maybe a vertical line, right? So maybe you're going to write vertical line, or repeated x values, a circle, anything like that. For examples, you know, we can think of linear functions. Maybe you draw a graph or find a picture. Every x has in its own y. We can think of what our definition was. So just kind of regathering any notes that you have for functions and putting it into this for yourself. And lastly, on slide 15, if you have any questions or comments or concerns that you want to share with me, you can put it into this box. You got it.